Over 50 years later, the Zodiac Killer remains unidentified. Despite numerous investigations and countless hours spent by law enforcement and amateur sleuths alike, the true identity of this elusive criminal has never been confirmed. The mystery continues to baffle and intrigue, casting a long dark shadow over the history of California. A phantom, a cipher. The Zodiac Killer was not just a murderer, he was a master of psychological terror. His cryptic letters, filled with taunts and obscure references, were sent to newspapers, challenging the police and the public to decode his messages. Each letter added another layer to the enigma, deepening the fear and fascination surrounding his persona. He terrorized Northern California, leaving behind a trail of blood and fear. His crimes were brutal and seemingly random, targeting young couples and lone individuals. The unpredictability of his attacks made the entire region feel vulnerable, as if no one was safe from his reach. His motives remain a mystery. Was he driven by a desire for fame, a need to outsmart the authorities, or something even more sinister? The lack of a clear motive only adds to the chilling nature of his crimes, leaving everyone to wonder what truly drove him to commit such heinous acts. His identity, a haunting question mark. Over the years, many suspects have been proposed, but none have been definitively proven to be the Zodiac. Theories abound, but the true face behind the mask remains hidden, a ghostly presence that continues to haunt the collective memory. The Zodiac case isn't just a cold case, it's a chilling reminder that evil can lurk anywhere at any time. The late 1960s were a period of significant social upheaval, with protests and movements challenging the status quo. It's a chilling reminder, evil can lurk anywhere. The late 1960s, a time of change and unrest. The Zodiac Killer's reign of terror added a new layer of fear to an already tumultuous era, making people question their safety and the world around them. A time of change and unrest. The civil rights movement, anti-war protests, and a general sense of rebellion against the establishment defined the era. But amidst this backdrop of social change, a different kind of darkness was emerging in California. But in California, a different kind of darkness was emerging. The Zodiac Killer's first known attack occurred on December 20th, 1968, marking the beginning of a series of brutal murders that would grip the state in fear. On December 20th, 1968, the Zodiac Killer claimed his first victims. David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen, a young couple full of dreams and hopes for the future, were parked on a lover's lane, unaware of the danger lurking in the shadows. David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen, young and in love, were parked on a lover's lane. Their evening took a tragic turn when the Zodiac Killer approached their car, shattering the peace of the night with gunfire. Shots rang out, shattering the night. David died instantly. The sudden violence was shocking, a brutal end to a quiet evening. Betty Lou, while trying to flee, was shot 5 times in the back. Her desperate attempt to escape was tragically cut short, leaving a scene of horror that would mark the beginning of the Zodiac's terrifying legacy. The Zodiac Killer didn't stop there. Months later, on July 4th, 1969, he struck again. Darlene Ferrin and Michael Mageau were parked by a golf course near Lake Herman Road. A car approached. A man emerged, blinding them with a flashlight. He opened fire. Darlene was shot multiple times. She died en route to the hospital. Michael, despite being shot in the face, arm and chest, survived. His testimony provided crucial details about the attacker's appearance. A white male, heavy-set, wearing a hooded sweatshirt. The killer vanished into the night, leaving behind a scene of carnage. The killer craved recognition. He wasn't just content with the act of murder. He wanted the world to know his name, to fear him, to be haunted by his presence. This was not a man who would hide in the shadows forever. He sought the spotlight, and he found it in the most terrifying way possible. He wanted to be feared. The very thought of him lurking in the dark corners of Vallejo sent shivers down the spines of its residents. His actions were calculated, his messages clear. No one was safe. Days after the Lake Herman Road attack, 3 letters arrived. Each one meticulously crafted, each one a piece of a larger, more sinister puzzle. The Vallejo Times-Herald, the San Francisco Chronicle, and the San Francisco Examiner each received a chilling message. The letters were not just a confession, they were a declaration of war against the public. The letters, penned in a chillingly articulate hand, claimed responsibility for both attacks. But there was more. They were filled with taunts, threats, and a promise of more bloodshed. A terrifying calling card. Each letter contained 1/3 of a 408-symbol cryptogram. This cryptogram was not just a puzzle. It was a challenge to the authorities and the public alike. Each letter contained 1/3 of a 408-symbol cryptogram. The killer claimed it held his identity, a tantalizing clue that drove both fear and curiosity. The killer claimed it held his identity. He was playing a game, and the stakes were life and death. He promised more attacks if the newspapers didn't publish his letters. The media was caught in a moral quandary, to publish and potentially save lives, or to withhold and avoid giving the killer the attention he craved. The public was gripped by fear. Vallejo, once a quiet town, was now a place of dread and suspicion. Every shadow, every stranger was a potential threat. The newspapers, facing an impossible dilemma, published the letters. They hoped that by doing so, they might prevent further bloodshed, even as they knew they were playing into the killer's hands. The hunt for the Zodiac Killer had begun. Law enforcement agencies were now in a race against time, trying to decipher the cryptograms and stop the killer before he struck again. The terror in Vallejo was only just beginning. The killer was true to his word. On September 27, 1969, he struck again. Cecilia Shepard and Brian Hartnell were enjoying a picnic at Lake Berryessa. A man approached them. He wore a hooded costume. On the hood, a chilling symbol, the Zodiac sign. He bound their hands and feet, then he stabbed them repeatedly. He left them for dead, carving a message on their car door. By knife, it read, followed by the date and location of the previous attacks. Cecilia died 2 days later. Brian survived, his testimony adding to the growing profile of the Zodiac. The cryptogram, dubbed the 408 cipher, became a national obsession. Amateur and professional codebreakers alike tried to crack it. A week after the Lake Berryessa attack, a breakthrough. A California schoolteacher and his wife solved the puzzle. The message was chilling, rambling, and offered no real clues to the killer's identity, but it did confirm one terrifying truth: the Zodiac Killer was real, and he was still out there. The attacks continued, casting a shadow of fear over the city. On October 11, 1969, Paul Stein, a San Francisco cab driver, became the Zodiac's next victim. Stein was simply doing his job, driving through the bustling streets of San Francisco, unaware of the danger that awaited him. Shot in the head at close range, the attack was brutal and swift, leaving no room for escape or survival. The killer took Stein's wallet and a piece of his blood-soaked shirt, a macabre trophy to mark his gruesome deed. He left behind another calling card, a piece of Stein's shirt sent to the San Francisco Chronicle. This was not just a murder, it was a message, a taunt to the authorities and the public. The city was on edge. Fear and paranoia spread like wildfire as people wondered who would be next. The Zodiac Killer had become a phantom, striking seemingly at random. His ability to evade capture only added to his terrifying mystique. Throughout 1969 and 1970, the Zodiac continued to taunt the police and the public. His letters were filled with cryptic messages and chilling threats. He sent more letters, more ciphers. Each one was a puzzle, a challenge to the brightest minds in law enforcement and the public. Some were solved, revealing disturbing insights into his mind, while others remain uncracked to this day, leaving a lingering sense of mystery. He claimed responsibility for more murders, though evidence was scarce. Each claim added to the growing legend of the Zodiac, a killer who seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. The Zodiac Killer became a media sensation. Newspapers and television broadcasts were filled with stories of his crimes, his letters, and the ongoing manhunt. His image, a composite sketch based on witness descriptions, became seared into the public consciousness. The face of the Zodiac Killer was one that haunted the dreams of many, a symbol of fear and the unknown. The San Francisco Police Department was under immense pressure. The killings had to stop. They poured resources into the investigation, chasing down thousands of leads. Psychics were consulted, profiles were built, but the Zodiac Killer always seemed to be one step ahead. Then, as abruptly as it began, the terror stopped. The letters ceased, the killings stopped. The Zodiac Killer vanished. Some believe he died, others that he was incarcerated for other crimes. But his shadow lingered. The unsolved case became a magnet for amateur sleuths and conspiracy theorists. Over the years, the Zodiac case has been reopened and re-examined countless times. New technologies have been applied to the evidence. DNA testing, forensic linguistics. Suspects have been named, some compelling, others outlandish. But each time, the trail runs cold. The Zodiac Killer remains unidentified. In 2023, a team of independent investigators claimed to have finally identified the Zodiac Killer. Using advanced forensic genealogy, they linked the crimes to a deceased man named Gary Francis Post. Their findings, while intriguing, have yet to be officially confirmed by law enforcement. The Zodiac Killer's reign of terror may have ended decades ago, but the scars remain. The families of the victims still search for answers, closure. The public remains captivated by the case, the unsolved mystery, the cryptic clues. The Zodiac Killer represents something unsettling about human nature, the capacity for senseless violence, the enduring power of fear. And until he is identified, the Zodiac Killer will continue to haunt our collective imagination.